Hello, everybody, and today I'm going to be doing my win-loss predictions for the Raiders 2026 season. But first, I need you to hit the subscribe button. I need 50 subscribers so I can go live. Even if you're not a Raiders fan, hit the subscribe button. I want to talk football. So, week 1, September 13th, we have a home opener against the Miami Dolphins. This is a great way to start the season because the Miami Dolphins, they got rid of all their talent. No more Tua. They traded away other players like Waddle to the Broncos. And you know what? Raiders have a lot more going on. During the offseason, Miami got rid of all their talent. But the Raiders, we got talent. So we got two quarterbacks. Kirk Cousins, Mendoza, whoever starts, we're going to win that game. We got a revamped offensive line. We got two running backs. So the running game is going to work in Clint Kubiak's new system. And we still got Mad Max. And during the offseason, the Raiders had one of the best salary caps available. You know, we had the most money to spend. While the Dolphins, man, they're regretting giving Tua Tagovailoa that big contract because I think this year, leave a comment telling me the exact number, but they're gonna have to pay him $80 million this year, and he's not even on the team. So when you have that much dead cap, you don't got room for talent to sign talented players. So just to let you guys know, I'm trying to be unbiased with these picks. But the Raiders are an ascending team and the Dolphins are a descending team. So I'm giving this game to the Raiders. Week 2, September 20th. It's an away game at the Los Angeles Chargers. But is it really an away game? Dude, Raider fans still own Los Angeles. Regardless of how the home field advantage plays out, the Chargers are still a playoff team. Probably not going to win the Super Bowl this year, but they're still going to be, a playoff wild card team, not going to win the division. So I'm going to give the Chargers the win. Raiders lose this one. So we are at 1-1. Week 3, September 27th, we are playing the New Orleans Saints in New Orleans. You know, this one was pretty tough because the Saints, they're a bad team, and the Raiders, they had the worst win-loss record last year. But I think what the Raiders did this offseason made them pretty even with the Saints. And New Orleans is just such a hard place to play. It's early in the season. Home field advantages mean more earlier in the season because everybody has hope. Maybe this would be the year that the Saints turn it around because ever since Drew Brees left, it's been a very questionable team, you know. But what I think makes the difference in this game is the quarterback rooms for both teams. Once again, we got Fernando Mendoza and we got Kirk Cousins. Both of those guys are going to be better no matter who the Saints are going to be playing. So I'm going to give the slight edge to the Raiders. Come on, it's the Saints. They're in the NFC South. No one wants to win the division down there. Week 4, October 4 is a home game against the Kansas City Chiefs. Are the Chiefs still an elite team? I don't think so. But you know what? They're not going to suck. They're still going to be competitive. As long as Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes are there, they're going to be a playoff team no matter what. Yeah, they missed the playoffs last year, but stuff happens. They went to 5 Super Bowls. I think they're allowed to have a bad season here and there, And even though it's a home game for the Raiders, it kind of feels like Kansas City West. I can't believe I said that, but I remember there was one game where there was a little bit of a pregame show, and they were showing the Allegiant Stadium. There was a reporter announcing, and you could hear the national anthem being played in the background while there was a reporter talking to people in the studio, and you could hear the national anthem in the back. But usually, when you hear "Home of the Free," you heard all the Chiefs fans say "Home of the Chiefs," and I was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe that happened in our Raiders stadium," but it did. I meant to say Braves. Don't get mad at me. The Chiefs are the ones that distorted my imagination of how that song was supposed to go, okay? Okay. The Kansas City Chiefs, they went through their Super Bowl hangover last year. So this year, do they get better? I think they do, but not right away because Patrick Mahomes, he's just one of those players I like to call that plays with magic. You know, how did he do that? Did you see that throw? It was just magic, and I think he's still going to be a little rusty early on. So I think the Raiders take this win. I think I'm going to tell you right now, Raiders Chiefs, they split it. Raiders win this one, and I don't want to get ahead of myself, but the Chiefs, they win the next one. Week 5, October 11th, is at the New England Patriots. So yeah, the elephant in the room. How are the Patriots gonna play with the whole Mike Vrabel situation? You know, there's gonna be some players on the team who are gonna back up Mike Vrabel no matter what. But then you're gonna have other teammates that are gonna lose complete respect for Mike Vrabel, and all I gotta say is what happened to John Gruden. John Gruden had his incident, and some of the football players that were on the Raiders were devastated, and they were behind John Gruden. Like Derek Carr said, "I love the man, I hate the sin." I understand that, but then you had other people on the team that they didn't want to play for him no more. If you guys remember the Chicago Bears game, that team looked like they didn't want to play for John Gruden anymore. So to wind that back to Mike Vrabel, how much control does Mike Vrabel have over this team? I just want to talk about football. I don't want to talk about his off-field situations, but this really hurt this team. This is like the worst time to have it because Mike Vrabel comes in, first-year coach, goes to the Super Bowl, they lose. And you know what? They weren't the best team, so maybe they could build on offense, but they're going to deal with that Super Bowl hangover. And now that Super Bowl hangover gets worse because now the coach is questionable about his ethics and stuff. So even though the Patriots have a really, really good defense, who on that defense is going to stay committed to this team? It's pretty hard to say. So I'm going to go with the Raiders on this one. I think the Raiders I think they're focused on playing football, and Mike Vrabel, everyone's going to have this on their mind throughout the whole season. And hey, who knows? Does Mike Vrabel even get the start coaching this year? Does he step away? Does he get fired? This is just not a good look for Mike Vrabel at all. He had something good, and it's broken. Even if he has a bad season, I just don't know, man. This Mike Vrabel thing, where everyone's gonna have to wait and see how the team reacts. But yeah, got the Raiders winning this one. So I got the Raiders at 4-1. Week 6, October 16th versus the Buffalo Bills. Yep, this is a loss. You know, Buffalo, they got a new head coach, but they still have Josh Allen. They're still an elite team. They're still Super Bowl contenders in my book, so the Bills, I got them winning this one, man. And even though the Raiders lose, I hope that they still put up a fight against the Bills, because I think the Bills are one of the better teams in the AFC. So depending how they do against the Bills shows you where the Raiders are at. Rebuilding that team. With that loss, I got the Raiders at 4-2. Week 7, October 25th. We are playing against the Los Angeles Rams. Yep. Another elite team. And I think this Rams team is even better than the Bills. So, yeah, this is going to be a loss. And you know what? I hope the Rams make it to the Super Bowl, because I have always been a fan of Matt Stafford, and if he needs one more ring to solidify him going to the Hall of Fame. So I got the Rams taking this one. This Raiders team is still rebuilding. They're still trying to build a foundation, trying to find an identity. So gotta give it to the team that almost made it to the Super Bowl. With that loss, I got the Raiders at 4-3. Week 8, November 1st, is at the New York Jets. I want to give the Raiders this win again, because, man, as much as the Raiders have been dysfunctional, the Jets have been right there, right next to them, and being dysfunctional. And I just feel like the Raiders have a better team, a better coach, and the Raiders got better players this offseason. I know the Jets had a good draft. They had a good draft. But what it comes down to is the quarterback. I don't think Geno Smith is going to do good with the Jets, because the Jets are bad. But when Geno Smith was with a good team like the Seahawks, he does good. So I got the Raiders taking this one, because do I really need to tell you more that it's the Jets? And you know what? This could be one of those games where the Jets upset the Raiders. So I might be wrong, but I just feel like the Raiders, they're a more stable franchise at this moment. So that puts me with the Raiders at 5-3. Man, that's pretty good. Oh boy, here we go. Week 9, November 8th, in San Francisco against the 49ers. This is the first time the Raiders it's the first time they've been back in the Bay since they've moved to Las Vegas. Not including preseason games, but man, Raider Nation, we better show up to this game, dude. We got to take it over. We got to do a blackout. The biggest problem with the 49ers is the injury bug. Could they won the Super Bowl last year had they still stay healthy? I think they would have been close, but I don't know. But this electrical substation thing, I don't buy it. But this has got to be a loss for the Raiders. The 49ers, even on a bad day, I think they'll beat the Raiders If anything, I think the Niners, last year they had a bunch of people hurt and they still won a bunch of games. So I feel like if they could stay healthy, they'll almost be an elite team. But even with injuries, they'll still be a really good team. Like I see them going into the divisional round of the playoffs. So gotta take this loss. I know it would be so cool if the Raiders could win this in San Fran or San Jose or San Clair or whatever we want to call it. It'd be nice if the Raiders won the Battle of the Bay, but the Niners are just too established and too well coached to lose this game. So this puts the Raiders at 5-4. And you know what? At this point, we were already won more games than last season, so this season's already a success. Week 10, November 15th, is a home game against the Seattle Seahawks. Clint Kubiak against his old team. And you know what? Even though we took Clint Kubiak, Seahawks coming off that Super Bowl, they're still an elite team, Do I think they repeat the Super Bowl? I give them a good chance. I say yes more than no, so this is probably going to be an easy win for the Seahawks. I know Clint Kubiak wants to, as a head coach, he wants to show the Seahawks, even though there was no bad blood, he took the job because he's never been a head coach and now he's a head coach. You just want to win these games. Nothing personal. You just want to be like, I could be a head coach. And it's only his first year. We don't know how Kirk Cousins is going to turn out. We don't even know if he's going to stay playing. We don't know how Fernando Mendoza is going to turn out. But the same thing could be about Seattle. How is their offense going to manage with a new offensive coordinator? But with Sam Darnold playing as a game manager, not trying to take away any credit from him, but I think if they just play safe football like they did in the Super Bowl, playing against a top defense, the Seahawks could win this game. Having said that, with Raiders losing, this puts the Raiders' schedule or their win-loss total at 5-5. Oh man, at one point I had them at 4-1, but you know what? Like I said, I'm trying to be unbiased. We should beat those teams that are not good, and I'm gonna get these elite teams. I'm gonna give them the win. Hopefully, a year from now, I get to review this video and see what I got right and what I got wrong. So, if you want to see that, subscribe. Week 11, November 22nd, at the Denver Broncos. Oh boy. This Broncos team, on paper, they're equivalent to the Patriots. Really good defense. Okay offense. But I think by this time, Bo Nix should be back. And they should be back to Super Bowl contender form. So, if anything, I think the Broncos take this one. It's in Denver. And November 22nd, I don't want to say Fernando or Kirk Cousins can't play in the cold, but it should start being cold in Denver by then, So I'm giving Denver the nod here. And that puts the Raiders at 5-6. The first time the Raiders have a losing season or a losing record is during Week 11. Week 12, November 29th, is at the Cleveland Browns. The dog pound. Oh boy. And you know what? I think the Browns, they're this is gonna sound dumb, but I don't care. They're kind of equivalent to the Broncos and the Patriots, except they don't have Deshaun Watson playing elite. Imagine if they did. Boy, it was such a knucklehead move on from Baker Mayfield, but Cleveland, one of the best defenses in the league, not the best, but enough to disrupt a, a team like the Raiders, who are just new coaches, new offensive scheme, new players like Garrett Wilson. Whoever's starting for the Raiders, I think Garrett Wilson gets 3 sacks at least. At least. And it's gonna be in Cleveland, November 29th, so it's gonna be cold. And you know what? Like I said with the Broncos, we don't know how this team is gonna react playing in the cold. Is it gonna be a big factor, or is it gonna be a non-issue? But since we don't know, I gotta factor that in and be like, you know what? It's gonna be cold. It's gonna be in Cleveland. This offense is probably gonna have a hard time. But you know what? Even though I said Miles Garrett is gonna have a few sacks, I think the Raiders still have a good running game. You know, they're still gonna lose, but what I just want to see is progress. I want them to show that even against a really good defense, that they're capable of running the ball. You know, they don't really got any elite wide receivers. They got Brock Bowers, but if I could see progress, I always want the Raiders to win, but I could at least be like, you know what? This is a progress with this team, and they're showing that they have a bright future. So I'm giving the Browns the win, which gives the Raiders a record of 5-7. Week 13 is a bye week. And oh boy, I have never seen the Raiders have a bye week this late in the season. A little bit about me. I've been watching the Raiders as a hardcore fan since the year 2000, and usually their bye weeks are around week 5. And for it to be this late is kind of, I don't know, it's just different, you know? I don't know how to feel about it. I always felt like when the Raiders had a bye week early, it just felt like, you know, it didn't really benefit the Raiders that much, because usually when teams have bye weeks early, they don't really have a lot of injuries yet. It's usually down the road during the season that teams, they need that bye week around this time, because this is getting close to playoff time, and you know, it's not good to have hurt people later in the season. You know, this bye week, I just never felt like it did the Raiders any good having it that early, you know. But maybe if I could look on the other side of the coin, maybe having the bye week early gives you a buffer to people having injuries on your team. So week 13 is a bye week, and the Raiders are still at 5-7. Almost done, guys. Week 14th, December 13th, is a home game against the Los Angeles Chargers. And you know what? I'm going to give the Raiders this win. Yeah, I think the Raiders are going to split the whole division. And I got the Raiders losing their first game in LA, but I got them winning this one. And you know what? Who knows if Fernando Mendoza is playing by this time, but I just don't know. It's just the Chargers, you know. I just don't trust that Chargers team. They always Charger, especially late in the season. They'll start off the season strong, but eventually something happens. And I think something with the Chargers, someone's going to get hurt, someone's going to get traded or cut. They have bad luck, and something's going to happen. And I know I shouldn't count on that because that's more superstitious than football facts, but I'm just giving the Raiders this win. And with that win, the Raiders are 6-7. 6-7. Week 15, December 20th. It's a home game against the Denver Broncos. And what do I think about the Broncos? You know, good defense, average offense. And I think the Raiders, I just feel like they're just going to take this one. I think the Raiders, they're just going to be more competitive this year, you know. I said their season, at this time, their record is 6-7. And if they have like close to a 500 record, you know, of course I'm not going to be happy with that, but like I said, I just want to see progress. And I think this is one of those games the Raiders should win because it's home. Maybe the Broncos fans have a takeover in Vegas, but I just don't feel like Bo Nix is all that good general or good game manager, but I just can't take him as an elite quarterback. I know he got drafted high, but still, this is a rivalry game, and I don't know, man. I just feel like the Raiders got this one. Not trying to be biased, but I just feel like this whole AFC West, they're not the NFC West. This is the AFC West. When you got the Chargers, you got the Chiefs, and you got the Broncos, all being quite questionable, to be honest, you know? Quite uncertainty all across the division, including us. But the Raiders are the only team that looks like they're ascending. So having win over the Broncos, that puts the Raiders at 7-7. A 500 record, but I'll take it. Week 16 is against the Tennessee Titans. It's a home game. And you know what? I'm just going to have to give this one to the Raiders too. You know, I know it's year 3 of Cam Ward, and this is where he should, you know, start playing like a franchise quarterback, but the Titans have a lot of holes, and I know they helped out Cam Ward in the draft by getting receivers and stuff, but I just don't see the Titans as a threatening team, you know? So, with the Raiders, you know, I'm just really excited about the O-line. We got 2 really good running backs now. So I see this team running the ball, and the Titans, this might be a close game, but I'm giving this to the Raiders. So with the Raiders with this win, I got the Raiders at 8-7. Week 17, January 3rd, is an away game at the Arizona Cardinals. And I don't know if you guys heard, but the Arizona Cardinals have one of the toughest schedules of this season, man, and it's not even funny that they're expected to lose all their games. You know, I think where the Raiders were last year is where where the Cardinals are at this year. And what I mean by that is Kyler Murray didn't work out. He had so much potential, but the Cardinals not a good run franchise. So uncertainty at quarterback. They have talent leave. So they're underdogs in this game, believe it or not. So I just I just don't see the Cardinals winning this one. Freaking this is that Cardinals might be one of those teams that I'm going to predict right now that get the number one overall pick next season. And yeah, the Raiders, they just, by this time, we should know if the Raiders are good or bad. And I know I'm doing these predictions, but they're just predictions. They could go, the season could go up or down either way, but I think even when the season starts, this is a win for the Raiders. So, with having me pick the Raiders over the Cardinals, that puts the Raiders, it puts their record at 9-7. And it's week 18 in Arrowhead against the Kansas City Chiefs. And I got the Chiefs winning this game. Raiders have a chance, I think they'll beat the Chiefs early on in the season. But by this time, I think the Chiefs will have it figured out. I think Andy Reid will have enough time to figure out, the plug and play players. I think Patrick Mahomes will find his groove. He's not going to be rusty. Travis Kelce's still there. They're in Arrowhead. And Arrowhead is one of the toughest places to play. So they got the home field advantage, which I want to bring up real quick. They're moving to a new stadium. I don't think it's gonna be that loud. I love Arrowhead Stadium. I like how it looks. It's an iconic stadium, but who knows if that home field advantage transfers over to their new stadium. So I got the Chiefs winning this, and that puts the Raiders at 9-8. And the only way the Raiders have a chance to sweep the Chiefs is if let's just say the Chiefs return to elite form and they secure a playoff spot. This is a meaningless game for them. If they bench their best players, they're gonna give this game to the Raiders. So that's the only way I see the Raiders winning this game if it's gifted to them by the Raiders. When they play earlier in the season, I think they're going to be more evenly matched. But by this time, I think the Chiefs will figure it out, and I think the Raiders, their hype will die down, and everyone's hyped about Fernando Mendoza. I'm super hyped about him. I'm glad we got him with the number one overall pick, but you can only run off of hype for so long before you have to actually show that you were worth the number one overall pick. And I just feel like by this time will the Raiders be a wild card team? They might be. They're not going to win the division, but at 9-8, I'm pretty happy with that. It's like the lowest grade possible to get a winning season, but this is progress, man. This is everybody that I picked to win or lose. I try not to be biased about it, but I'm like, all right, this team is descending, not looking good. Let's take this win. All this team's elite. Let's give them the win, And I think with 9-8, I could see that this team is going in the right direction. And hey, this is just like the Broncos a few years ago. If we make it to the playoffs somehow, 9-8 is not the best record to get into the wild card, but things happen. But If we make it to the playoffs, oh my God, I will call this season a win because, like I said, I've been a hardcore Raider fan since the year 2000. And since 2002, they only been to the Super Bowl twice in like over 20 years. So we win the division. It's one of those moments where it's like, wow, we're a good team. We're a good team. you know, you know how sad it is to play meaningless football late in the season. Like your season's already over. It's been over, and there's questions like, oh, we're gonna get rid of the coach. Who are we gonna get at quarterback? But you know what? Even if we don't make the playoffs, 9-8, that's a good first year for Clint Kubiak. I don't know when Fernando Mendoza is gonna start playing, but you know what? Peyton Manning had one of the worst rookie seasons of all time, and he turned out to be one of the best football players of all time. I don't want to get into that debate. I like Peyton Manning, and of course, Tom Brady won 6 Super Bowls. Joe Montana won 4. Brett Favre and Rodgers, gotta include them. But this is a process. This is gonna be a long-term situation for the Raiders, and you know, I'm trying to live in the now. I'm not trying to wait for the future, but the future looks bright, and we should be happy that the Raiders finally have a direction for once, because a lot of the coaches that we got, they felt like they didn't know what they were doing. Like, felt like Pete Carroll didn't know what he was doing. Chip Kelly didn't know what he was doing. Antonio Pierce, I don't think he knew what he was doing. Josh McDaniels, I don't think he knew what he was doing. I think John Gruden knew what he was doing, but it wasn't the best method. And but in year 3, that team looked like, of John Gruden's second tenure with the Raiders, it looked like that team was going to be really good, and then he resigned as a head coach, and we all know how that turned out. But yeah, guys, I'm excited. But another thing I need to bring up is the Raiders did not get one primetime game, which kind of bothers me because I like seeing the Raiders on primetime. And the last 2 games of the season against the Cardinals and the Chiefs, those games have not been their exact date hasn't been announced yet. Those games could be flexed in. I don't think the Raiders Cardinals, that's not going to be flexed in. But maybe the Chiefs and the Raiders, week 17, that could have been flexed in. It happened a couple years ago when the Raiders and the Chiefs winner goes to the playoffs. That was a 1 o'clock game, but it got flexed into Sunday night, and oh boy, what a game that was. And just to let you guys know, I really hate the Steelers, and I was down for a tie, man. I was down for the Raiders and the Chiefs, or the Chargers, to tie, just so the Steelers don't make it, because I hate the Steelers. It feels like they go into the playoffs no matter what, just by default. So and I was watching that game, and that game was in overtime. It looked like they were going to run out the clock. It felt like the game was going to end in a tie, and they panned to a Steelers fan having one of the saddest faces, like a stink face, and I just couldn't hold it in. I just started laughing my ass off. But hey, Chiefs had to call a timeout, and they gave the Raiders a chance. And that's why they fired that one coach, because, he charged them. So yeah, 9-8. I'll take that. No primetime games. That's cool. That's probably like a good thing for everybody that's a Raider fan that doesn't want to buy Amazon Prime or ESPN, because this is a subject for another day. But all I'm gonna say is that having to buy all these streaming services just to watch games is not right. And the government's looking into it. There's a federal investigation about that one law that was set in 1961 or two about the broadcast antitrust laws. I'm not really sure about that, but I just miss the days when all the games were on freaking TV for free, you know? Even if you had cable, you would see all the games. And with the Raiders not having a primetime game, that means you just need Fox and CBS. I don't have to buy anything. Oh, but wait a minute. I'm from California, and they're not really a market team anymore. But you know what? I don't care. I'm at least gonna get NFL Plus. See if I could. Yeah, let me know in the comments if you're living in California and you get NFL Plus. Do you still can you choose what team you want to follow? Because that would really suck if you were a team from out of state. Let's just say you're a Cowboys fan and you live in California and you want to follow the Cowboys, but you don't want to get an NFL Sunday ticket. You don't want to get, I think, Hulu TV, or you just don't want to buy any subscriptions. You just want one. Can you set up your NFL Plus streaming so you could catch all your games? Because if that's the case, that's what I'm going to do, man. I'm going to get NFL Prime and freaking play that stuff on my phone so I don't miss a game. But yeah, I'm Dro. Subscribe. I need 50 subscribers. I'm at 26. I need subscribers so I can start live streaming because I just want to talk football. It would have been nice if I could have live streamed this and I could have had other people, like, if you're not a Raiders fan, just still subscribe, because if you join my live streams, I want to hear some of the other fans. I want to hear their opinions in my chat. You know, I'm just trying to have a good time. I'm gonna try to start streaming a little bit more once I get the enough subscribers, but this schedule release is probably the last big news we're gonna have until September, maybe. No, until August. And I think it'd be really fun if I do a couple live streams, talk about some subjects, and just, try to have fun until football season stops, because, football is one of my favorite things. And the reason why I started this channel, started recording videos and talk about football, is because I could just talk about this all day. So thanks for watching. Like and subscribe.